I had to take up CrossFit, so I had to reach out through my network to get information about it, and I've done, some CrossFit kind of things with them, and so that gives buy-in. But I think one of the things that I often find with students is they write programs on paper and they're like, this is a great program. I'm like, but you can't do it in 60 minutes, and that's all you have. As a strength coach, I don't know a single strength coach in the world that doesn't tell me they need more time with their athletes.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's the number one thing everybody says.
Right.
Oftentimes, I mean, you may get 60 to 90 minutes max 2 to 3 times a week. So how are you going to do all these little small mass exercises that really, in a lot of ways, don't do anything for performance? And so I often tell them to try their program. And it's hilarious to watch them crash and burn. Because or my other favorite one is the rest interval thing. Yeah, I'm going to squat at 75% max, which is roughly about RM for sets of 10. And I'm going to do 30-second rest intervals. I'm like, yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. For the first set,
Yeah. I mean, or even, I was trying to explain to one kid, I was like, can you even load the bar in 30 seconds?
Yeah.
In between sets, like to go up weight? So I think that's one. The other thing we've noticed a lot is, at least in Australia at least, there is a real hyper focus on using cardio as your warm-up. And like, let's hop on the bike for 10 minutes and then go lift. I'm like, well, how does that prepare me to do lifting? Yeah, I'm warm, but am I ready to lift? And so to try to use versions of Ian Jeffries' ramp protocol and dynamic movement through range of motion and integrating motor learning and constructs to get range is like brain bomb for most of my students. They just, no, I got to do cardio. Why?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's a really good opportunity, I think, for scaffolding. So if you're new to the space and you're wondering, like, how should I warm up to get ready for my workouts, there's been a lot of different thoughts about that over the years. Like when I was a kid, they were real big on like do a jog, do some static stretching. I would always make myself hard to find during the static stretching part because I always slowed down so much after doing them, and I did power sports. I didn't want to be slow, and but now, there's a lot more like you can just do the movements you're going to do, like do them in a long range of motion, do them with less weight, like just get your body going in the thing that you're doing. It is good to get warm. Like you actually do want your like body temperature up a little bit because the whole system's viscoelastic, meaning that if it's warmer, it's more flexible and more pliable, right? What's like if you were giving somebody advice on warming up, what's like the method that you really enjoy for spending time in the weight room, we'll say specifically?
So, well, I do agree with you that doing the actual activity is a good way to start. I would actually say we should start before that, and I would use ranges of motion. So, for example, let's say I'm going to do a lower body session with the Olympic lifts as part of it, or the weightlifting movements as part of it. So we would start in place, and we can do things like body weight squats. We can do things like lunging motions. We can do crawling motions. We can do lunging and twisting motions. We can do things that move from stationary to dynamic. And what we'll want to do is ramp up the intensity so that as we get to the last part of the warm up before we do the bar stuff, we're doing our most dynamic activities. And we find that we can, if we're smart, we can integrate motor competency training into that part of the warm up, but also we can integrate things that are injury preventative and not waste training time on exercises that aren't necessarily injury preventative. So it's really interesting. There's two really great books that I like. One is by Mark Kovacs on dynamic flexibility. That is quite good. It's a little bit older. He's an Australian who works in tennis, and he's got a lot of dynamic actions. And then Ian Jeffries' books on the ramp warm up and warming up are quite good as well. And Ian Jeffries, and then also my wife, they talk a lot about this idea of using dynamic movement with body weight through range of motion that is basic skills. So you know how you start out strength training with kids, it's often like animal moves and things?
Mm-hmm.
Well, they actually use that as part of their dynamic warm-up. And because they do that, we're reinforcing motor skills, because what do we know as we get older? We lose motor competency. So especially if we're not as trained. So you use that as your warm-up. And it's really funny. We bring like 30 to 50 students to Perth, Australia for our practicum unit in our online course. So they come one time a year for 2 weeks from all over the world. And it's hilarious to watch how winded they get in this dynamic warm up, because in class online, they're arguing with me. No, you can't get warm without cardio. Can't get warm without cardio. And I'm watching them just die in the warm up as my wife takes them through it. And I'm like, dude, this woman, she's almost 57 years old, is kicking your ass. Come on, man. Um, and I think that we have to get out of this mindset that we're just trying to warm the body.
Hmm.
It's get warm, but then prepare to do movement. So if you're doing upper body stuff, you got to get the shoulders loosened. If you're doing, but you should always
Right.
work the lower body as well to keep the motor competency